April 2nd, 2026 at 6:06 p.m. Tonight's workshop, call to order. We'll start with that. Ms. Rachel.
I'm sorry, we were lost.
Ah,
Okay. Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Bufflini,
Present.
Commissioner Hall, not, Vice Mayor McDonald,
present.
and Mayor Anderson.
All right, we have one item on new business this afternoon. Consideration and discussion of the prospective candidate for the interim city manager position. We have Mr. Vernon Girth with us this evening. We're going to turn the microphone over to him, let him introduce himself, give a brief background, and then we will open it up to the board for questions.
Thank you, Vice Mayor McDonald and commissioners and citizens that have taken time to come out. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to introduce myself briefly, if I may. My name's Vernon Girth. I had been, until right before the Christmas holiday, an assistant city administrator with the city of Franklin, just down the road. And my responsibility were supporting staff in growth management, capital projects, and development. And as I said, it's almost 19 years that my wife and I moved to Franklin. And when we arrived here, she was an elementary music teacher and continued on at Battleground Academy until COVID came, and then she retired. But again, I retired right before the Christmas holiday. Prior to that, and I'm going to go back a long time, but I assure you that as far as I go back, I'm not going to go year by year. So I'm going to go back about 52 years when I was graduating from high school in a blue-collar community in southeast Wisconsin, Kenosha, Wisconsin. And as I was growing and going through school, I wanted to become a master carpenter, and I did that upon graduation. And at that time, I also started going to college in the evening. And as fate would have it, after about 12, 13 years of being a master carpenter and working for a very reputable company, the city of Kenosha asked me to come and work for them and their community development department. I did that, and after 9 months, one of the most noticeable things that happened, because I was born in Kenosha, was Chrysler Motors, that had 17,000 employees at their 2 manufacturing plants, decided they were going to stop manufacturing automobiles and reduce their workforce to 3,500 overnight to just manufacture engines. And it was my responsibility to redevelop the lakefront in which they had a plant, and it was a brownfield site that today is, I'm proud to say, is a marina, has a couple museums, one a Civil War museum, and a mixed-use development that attracts visitors and for the citizens to use. After I spent a dozen years in Kenosha, I decided to venture south a little bit into a northwest suburb of Chicago called Vernon Hills, Illinois, not named after me, but it was a retail destination for a lot of people in northern Illinois, as well as a bedroom community and some corporate offices, but it was landlocked because of the surrounding suburbs. And that was a lot of experience in trying to develop a city center where it didn't have one. And also supporting the businesses that were growing there. But traffic was a big issue then, as it is now. As fate would have it, we built a village hall that I was responsible for in Vernon Hills, and it attracted a lot of visitors. And in late 2006, a group from Franklin, Tennessee, because they were contemplating building a city hall, that you might be aware, they just started a few years ago. And they mentioned when they came, and I toured our village hall with them, that they had a position open in Franklin. And I have heard of Franklin, I've heard of Middle Tennessee. a huge opportunity was growing in this region. So my wife and I accepted, and in early 2007, we moved here with our college, or our junior and high school daughter, and I'm here sitting before you today and had a very rewarding experience in Franklin. You all probably have heard of Franklin and know what's going on, and not only in Franklin, in Williamson County, and we might discuss some of that. But when I mentioned something that truly impacted me in Franklin, it's two people. And I often will say that as we walk through life, we meet people that have a profound impact on who we are. And City Administrator Eric Stuckey and Mayor Ken Moore are those two people that are on that short list of mine. I have a great deal of respect for them. I learned a great deal from them, not only from leadership, but character. And that is something that nobody will ever take from me. And I want to share that with you because it's important to me and it's important about who I am. I'm never one to sit still, so as I was getting ready to retire from Franklin, I decided to set up a civic and development advisory service just to do something a little bit while my wife, Sherry, got acclimated to me being around the house. And as I've been fortunate and very busy. But if this opportunity works out, we'll work with me completing some of the projects that I have before me and see how I can help you all here in Fairview. Most importantly, I mentioned my wife, Sherry. We have two children, a son and daughter, both in their later 30s. Our son works for NOAA in the Department of Commerce. He's married outside of Washington, D.C. And our daughter is a physician's assistant. And we have two grandchildren with her and her husband, and they live right outside Dallas in the Plano-Frisco area, and she works for the Dallas Children's Hospital. So I'll leave it at that. Sorry for being a bit long-winded, and again, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. At this point, we will open it up to, just so you all know, what we're going to do is we're going to allow the BOC to ask some questions, have conversation with Mr. Girth, and then if there's time before 7 o'clock remaining, we will open it up for questions from the audience as well.
Sir, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate having you here. One of the questions that I have, after sitting with all the department heads, what challenges do you see before you in the interim position?
Well, you all know this, but I want the citizens that are here this evening to know and maybe watching is that yesterday afternoon I had an opportunity to meet with the department directors for approximately a little less than 2 hours, and they shared with me what their expectations were. So that challenge is not so much a challenge as how I can work with you all to support them in serving the community. And I became aware of this opportunity a week ago, Thursday, at this time. And haven't had much time to digest or research if I could, but I've done some. And because of the limited time I have, if you select me to be your interim person and manager, I want to make sure that we're as intentional and as effective as we can be in helping the team know what your expectations are to do what they do best. And I've learned over my career that helping the board communicate to staff is critical and to be efficient. So I would offer that many times people at board meetings and get up and they might say, and you've probably heard this, well, the city needs to act more like a business. Well, businesses need to act more like a city too. And it's not one way or the other. But the one way that I've learned that cities can act like a private business is that Board of Commissioners, Board of Mayor and Aldermen, whatever, are much like a board of directors. And their charge is to set expectations, set the vision, and communicate that to the CEO. And the CEO is charged with communicating that to staff, executing on that vision and expectations, and reporting back up. And that's what I want to do and would need that commitment to be able to support your talented and passionate team that I met in just those couple hours yesterday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here this evening. Really appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody who's here and anybody who's listening online. Kind of a second to that question, you had the meeting with the group yesterday, and I'm really grateful that you had that time with them, and I was able to follow up with several of them to find out how it went, and I felt that there was a really positive feeling from them about it. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what do you think are some of their top priorities right now too?
Well, in that short time, I wanted to understand, who they were, what brought them to this community, what brought them to want to be in public service. You really have to be special and committed to wanting to serve the public. And I have a lot of work to do with y'all and them to understand what those priorities are, and the budget is front and center. That's clear. As I'll just say, as I get started, not to be presumptuous, of course, they have priorities too, and I didn't feel that was appropriate to get down into that detail, but it was clear in the conversation that they are looking for decisions. And I want to help make that happen and communicate to them what they need to go forward, because they're bright people and they're going to need to step up too during this interim period and as build capacity and time in the coming months. It'll come together much better. That's the best I can say it. We didn't get into the details of each department director. I have an idea, but the budget, I've learned over my career, is the most important document a community has. It really is transparent. It tells the citizens who you are and what you're going to do. It doesn't mean in case of emergency, and hopefully we never have an ice storm like we have for a long, long time. But that budget is key, and it gives staff the confidence to work towards what that budget says when you adopt it and approve it. It also tells bonding agencies how fiscally responsible you are. And being fiscally responsible is important. I realize well and good that Franklin was on a path to who they've become today long before I moved to Franklin, Tennessee. And back in the late 50s when Fairview became incorporated, you've come forward too. We're at a point in Williamson County that it's not not a secret, that some people feel it's growing too fast. Well, I don't know if many of you know a former alderman in Franklin named Margaret Martin. She was born and raised there. She served up until a few years ago, and we certainly had our share of developments come forward, and a growing number of citizens, many that just moved to the community, say we're growing too fast. And she would say, well, people were saying that before you came to the community and we let you in. And it's more complicated than that. And that is my forte, is growth management. And how to leverage the investment made by businesses and developers to help improve the quality of community. And as you all and your neighbors look for creating this special identity called Fairview that attracts families, that attracts businesses, that enhances the quality of life to whatever you want, I hope to do that in the short period of time to show how that can be done. And whatever we're working on at the time. I'm not going to solve it because, as I mentioned, in Franklin, they had spent decades planning, and they were true to their master plans, and they updated them frequently. And I know you are doing some things with your development and zoning regulations as well. But that being intentional, the result you get is right down the street. And there's a lot of benefits that come with it. There's an equal amount of challenges that come with it too, in affordability, in traffic. And a lot of the traffic comes during the day, leaves, and on the weekends. Some of that traffic is good in terms of visitors and the shopping they do. Others, it's just the nature of how the community is developing. Sorry to be so long-winded, but I feel that's important. And I do want everybody to know, while I've been involved in budgets in the 3 communities I've worked in, really the managing of growth in development, capital projects, budgeting for them, executing is really my forte.
I'll go down the list here to the budget, since we were you were talking about that in the moment. Can you just kind of go into your philosophy or how you approach a budget as a whole? Is there overall? This is Mr. Hall. Mr. Hall, welcome.
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Just high level, just kind of how you view a budget and just kind of your philosophy behind how you go about managing a budget and building it out.
Well, since I haven't had the opportunity to be
Sure.
here, and you're in this period of amending and adopting a budget, it's not an ideal situation, and coupled with that I wouldn't be able to be here 40 hours a week or 50, whatever time it takes, because that's the type of person I am. But ultimately, in an ideal situation, what we want to start with is the department directors and their team to submit requests of what they feel would improve their efficiency in their current operations, and as the city evolves, what they need to keep up to maintain their current services. So that we can put that together. We can also look at what our projected revenues will be. And this is an internal discussion to start, so that we can have that discussion, but it wouldn't be something that their requests would be presented to you so we could have that discussion. But they would come with a recommendation from myself and the finance director.
Mr. Hall, we've been doing a little bit of a round robin here, so if you have a question, it would be your turn.
I'll put in a minute.
Sure.
I have a question for you. How do you prioritize competing projects with limited resources?
How do I prioritize compete? I want to be clear, I heard that.
Yes. So how are you going to prioritize competing projects with limited resources? So will you have some sort of a chart, or will you submit to us, say, you know what, they're asking for a judicial center or a skyscraper or anything like, you know what I'm saying? Like just as an example.
Yeah, data-driven decisions are best. Whether you have a good revenue stream or not so strong revenue stream. But when you say how I prioritize, I look at it as being staff presenting to you. And I mean this with all due respect. I would ask you how you're going to prioritize when we give you the competing projects that staff has. And I'm going to give you an example because I do like to say I have a sense of humor as we live and work together. The city of Franklin has a list of over 100 capital projects. And our Board of Mayor and Aldermen prioritize those every several years, and they might shift a little bit. But if we can do a dozen or so, that's what they decide on. And we will prioritize as staff what those priorities should be and why. Some will include data, most will include data. And hopefully that we understand what the resources are to carry them forward. And some of those projects take several years between designing, putting out for bid, and then executing on those. So I don't mean to turn that around, but that's an example, Commissioner, of making a decision for staff. Because we can recommend, and we'll do that for you. But ultimately, you know, we need decisions to carry out with the resources we have. And I gave you an example of Franklin, Tennessee, that has a bunch more projects that they can undertake. A bunch.
Thank you.
Thank you for your responses so far. You alluded to this already, and the staff that I spoke with following the conversation they had with you yesterday, and this came up when I spoke with you also, so I had this question too. We're accustomed to having a full-time city manager, and the hours that you can dedicate to us from the start are less than full-time. So I think the number of hours per week that's been discussed so far has been 16. And that sounds low until I think about how you're already discussing about how you would organize things. So rather than it coming from me, though, would you help us understand how you could be effective with, as a part-time interim city manager, to help us get the gears grinding and prioritize things like our amended budget and annual budget? And then we also have like things like the storm cleanup and the potential of a park cleanup. How might you approach that from the onset?
After meeting with staff and working with talented colleagues, Franklin, or Illinois, Wisconsin, my time needs to spend with them, supporting them and understanding what they need from me and the authority that I would have as an interim city manager, but also from you. And one of the things that I've done and experienced in my career, not much in Franklin though, but watching other jurisdictions, is that because of the limited time, I really need the support of the commission. And by that I mean is that using the model that many communities use, and I will revert to Franklin, but I know Spring Hill and some others use it as well, is it's very effective to have a work session for an hour before the board meeting that's going to discuss, allow citizens, the commissioners, staff, to talk about the items that will appear on the agenda in 2 weeks. So that, and even though you're not voting on it, if any questions come up, it gives staff the opportunity to get back with the commissioners, with Rachel, put it in a packet that's published, and then the board meeting, the decisions can be made. There really shouldn't be any surprises. One of the things that I've learned and experienced and set an expectation as being an assistant city administrator supporting our staff is developers, when they come to a meeting to present a project and have discussed with staff, no surprises should occur. The developer should know what staff has said about their staff recommendation, and staff understands what the developer is going to say. So it's a transparent, trusting process where no surprises come up, so the Board of Commissioner or Planning Commission, when you're before it, understands what's going to happen. But this carries down into a work session, into all the items. It could be a special event. It could be something that needs to be discussed regarding operations, in which a department director, staff person would come and talk about a particular project or the status of a project. But ideally, we want to focus in on those items that are going to appear on the next agenda, so you're prepared to make a decision. We all are busy people, our citizens, yourself as commissioners, and certainly staff. And being productive after a 14 or 16-hour day into the evening is not productive. And it also sets an expectation that when you come to a work session, you need to be prepared. And as a commission, and Mayor Lisa as well, need to be able to move that agenda along, allow sufficient dialogue, and either decide to move it to another work session, or it's going to appear on the agenda and be acted on in a timely manner. So that's how I would recommend, and that would be part of my proposal to you, that I have that commitment to move that forward in that way, so I can be effective with the limited time I have with the city team and you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Girth, first off, enjoyed the conversation we had the other evening. As you know, they may have already touched on it, but our focus right now in Fairview, other than is the disaster that we've gone through from the ice storm. And driving over it again this afternoon for, I guess, an hour and a half, it's still a disaster out there as far as I'm concerned. Have you had very much experience at handling a disaster?
Well, we could talk about the flood in 2010. City of Franklin has the Harpeth River winding through it, a lot of bridges, a lot of low banks, and it's really impactful.
I know.
But it's it's a great example of the team having the support to do what they can with the resources they need. And the ice storm, that flood, impacted a lot of communities.
Well, I was in business in the 2010, actually in the flood damage business, so I'm very well aware of what disaster the Nashville surrounding communities had. I'm just curious, that's the question I had for right now, so anyway.
Hey, one of the, I'll say if I may,
sure.
to go on with that, leveraging grants and funds takes time too. And I'm saying this in general sense, not focused on a declared
Right.
disaster or anything, but generally, a lot of people believe that these grants are available for any number of things, road improvements, parks, et cetera, infrastructure. Not necessarily true if you take a look at the time it takes to apply for it and qualify for those grants. Now, I'm separating something related to an event,
That's quite
a
all right.
storm or a flood. But that has to be very carefully evaluated before just jumping in. Because if staff is taking away that time, and with a smaller staff, it may or may not be worth it, and then you hire somebody to make that application. And then you have to understand what is the opportunity for success of being awarded a grant that's going to help you move forward, and what's the value of it. So I share that with you from real experiences throughout my career.
Well, thank you for that, because the 2010 flood, that would have been my choice too, so thank you for that. Go ahead.
We'll change pace a little bit. I think by meeting with staff yesterday, talking with us throughout the week on the phone, we've probably covered a lot of the issues that are facing the city at the moment. And it's hard to have a conversation about those. You haven't had an opportunity. I think it's unfair to ask you some of your opinions on that without having a working knowledge of where we stand with everything. That being said, with what you do know of the city, what would you say the biggest opportunity is at the moment that you see coming into this? And what you would think, what would success look like for you in this interim position?
Well, first and foremost, it's ensuring that the employees that serve this community have what they need to do what they believe is best for the community, first and foremost. And that will take some time in itself. There's trepidation that comes with change, whatever that is, in our families, certainly in our communities, in our businesses, whatever, and want to reduce that. And one of the ways to reduce that is allowing employees and even citizens to feel valued in doing what they need to do, and with the direction from yourself and the support from me. And that's how come I ask that you work directly with me and let me communicate with them so they can stay involved and engaged with what they need to do. Resources are limited. I know that. And they know that. But that is incredibly important as we get started. And that's how come I talk about that work session, because we want to make effective use of their time, but your time too. And then the citizens understand what's happening. That they come to a work session, you're going to talk about it for a period of time, depending how many agendas are on that, how many agenda items are on the agenda. And then you're going to come to a voting meeting and you're going to act on them in a timely manner. And we're going to move on to the next day and days and to the next meeting. But that'll help. The other, to add on after supporting staff, is meeting with you all. And I will do that as much or as little as you want. But initially, setting aside a time to have a cup of coffee, water, tea, whatever, and individually understanding what your priorities are, so not to take an hour of time during a work session, and certainly not during a commission meeting. That will help me as well, and that would be something I'd want to do initially too. So that would take essentially the first month, okay, to understand staff, understand the employees I did not meet yesterday, get to know them, what makes them tick, why they want to serve the community, and how best can they do that. Because the budget, and working with Ben, I talked to him just briefly, we need to get you something to act on, and you know that timeliness of that, it's important. We'll do the best we can and get you to act on it and get on with the work. And I have been driving around the city a little bit before I came here this afternoon and before I came yesterday. Tried to drive down some side roads. I've been through Fairview and will continue to do so. And that's something I need to do. You talk about making an improvement, something not working well, a citizen calls and wants us to evaluate something. I want to know what it is.
Thank you for that.
I'm off in the afternoon, and I'll be glad to volunteer my time to ride you around the city.
Thank you. I will take you up on that.
Any additional questions from the board at this time? We've got an additional 15 minutes left. If there's questions from the citizens that you would like to ask, I just ask that you approach the microphone and please be respectful of our guest.
Hello and welcome. Two questions. I understand this is a 16-hour-a-week commitment. For how long is the commitment? Is it a month? Is it 5 months, 6 months, a year?
If I may, as I understand, it is prudent and responsible for the commission they want to do a search, a nationwide search, I understand, for a permanent replacement. I will commit to as long as that takes. And as I complete the commitments that I've already started, which will take, like I said, a couple months or so, and I didn't evaluate what those look like yet, then maybe I can increase time if the commissioners would like me to do that and staff. So I'm here until you have a new permanent city manager on board. And, you know, initially, whether that's 16 hours or 20 hours and the flexibility that may come along with that, I'm open to that too, because the work I'm doing for my other clients there's some flexibility with the time. It's not 8 hours a day. I might be here 1 day a week and might be here 2 half days or commuting via Zoom or MS Teams too.
Well, you had a good segue into that about the search the commission is going to have for full-time. Will you be assisting in that search to be able to seek, and they can seek your guidance in finding, you know, qualified individual to come and be the.
Since you directed, you know, that to me, if I may answer that way too, and I apologize, Commissioner Hall, that you're to my side here. I don't mean
You're
any
fine.
disrespect to that.
I'm
That's up to the commission. That's a decision. I will say this, that in the city of Franklin, that every time we had an assistant administrator, key positions, department directors, we did searches and went outside. Whether they were robust national searches, which we just completed one for my replacement, we did searches because leadership positions, key positions such that a community deserves to have the best talent. But that doesn't mean that that best talent isn't in the community. It validates if a staff person wants to apply for a position, that it's gone through a formal, transparent process that you're getting the best candidate. And that is key.
Thank you.
If I may, and this is in further response to your question, I will encourage the commission to have Mr. Girth really commandeer the search and identify the search company and be very involved, because he'll know the criteria and what it looks like to take us to the next step. And as far as how long that search will take, in my experience, having been through several for city managers in other cities, you're looking at 8 to 12 months, likely.
I'm sorry, when were you contacted from this board to come and to help us out with on-call, permanent, whatever position?
Former city administrator Eric Stuckey reached out to me last Thursday night about this time.
Okay, who reached out to you
Eric Stuckey, the city administrator in Franklin.
in Franklin? And who reached out to them?
I don't know that.
Okay. And so where, you work in Franklin? And you're from Franklin, Tennessee?
No, I'm originally from southeast Wisconsin, Kenosha, Wisconsin, and not going backwards, but my wife and I moved to Franklin in Williamson County in 2007.
Okay. And do you work for the city right now?
No, I retired before the Christmas holiday after almost 19 years.
And what was your position there?
My position was Assistant City Administrator for Community and Economic Development.
Okay. So I do believe Mr. Hall was commenting, have you ever faced something like, I'm trying to think of the last disaster that we've had in in regards to weather and stuff. Have you ever dealt with anything like that before? I was trying to remember what you just said.
As I mentioned,
You were
to
saying, yeah.
Commissioner Hall, the 2010 flood was after, it was with the city of Franklin, and certainly it was all hands on deck, so to say, to respond
And how did you guys respond?
in coordinated unison.
Okay. So were you able to recapture any funds?
Oh, yes.
And from who'd you get those
That was a
funds?
declared
Okay,
national disaster, of course.
correct. And so where did you get majority of your funds?
Well, FEMA.
To pay for
had-
it.
FEMA had those, and there is a protocol that comes in with documenting the time and resources so they can be applied. And FEMA sent plenty of support to help us through that.
So what happens when funds aren't met only through FEMA? How are those funds captured then through the city?
Yes.
Through the city, so it's through taxing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the city has a budget
Right.
and a reserve. And for unforeseen issues that come up. And life safety is critical in ensuring that the citizens are protected and those resources are used wisely, particularly if they're limited. And that's,
In the 2010 flood, did you need to use all resources that you guys had in your funds?
no,
Okay, so you had an overflow of funds.
yeah.
I mean, when I say that is like, you didn't go into the red with your funds with collecting from FEMA to help with the 2010 flood.
If I may, because you're asking more of a complex question.
Correct.
This is more of about a fiscal policy that you're talking about than responding to a particular event.
We're in the middle of responding right now with picking up and stuff. I'm just wondering about the money. Where did all the money come from? And was there enough reserve when you guys, for 2010 in Franklin, did you guys have enough money that FEMA didn't cover?
Well, initially, the city would use its own funds before those funds come in from FEMA, yes.
You have to, yeah.
But our fiscal policy, and again, the city of Franklin has been a AAA-rated community for many years, as is Williamson County.
County, correct.
And I would hope, and even though there might be 250 cities and counties around this country that have achieved that designation from the bonding agencies, communities still should aspire to get there. And it takes a lot of time, and that's where your questions come from, is what are the resources available, and then how do you prioritize them until some resources can come back in.
Correct.
And when you have an unforeseen event, and I can say with certainty that my son, being a physical scientist that studies atmospheric science and how events occur and studies the impact of various events, they can be pretty impacting to communities that don't have the resources. And we saw this, actually, in East Tennessee during the flood event that occurred there that unfortunately took some lives, too. And, you know, the recovery is long and onerous. And it takes a lot to pick up those pieces afterwards if the resources aren't readily available.
Correct.
So I want to be clear that every community is different. Every community has its own challenges. I don't look at it as different in challenges, but what's the opportunities ahead? And that's some of the questions here. That Fairview is part of a very vibrant Middle Tennessee economy. And leveraging that to whatever level you want will help build resources for the community that will translate into better quality of life, so to say. Not to say that the history in Fairview, quality of life that you have here is not appealing. But as time changes, and I see that in the old pictures I had when my children were growing up, and I look in the mirror in the morning, managing what we do and how we do it, whether it's our body, ourselves, our family, or a community, is critical, because this event that happened is impacting Fairview probably more so than it did, frankly. I don't know. I've driven around.
It depends on where you live. Brentwood was hit very hard as well.
Yes.
So,
And
and
I
parts
know
of Bellevue.
Nolensville, and there
Any
is-
place with lots of trees was hit. Okay, so do you understand, I'm assuming, what you're walking into? And you understand the circumstances that they just fired our city manager?
Yes.
Okay.
I certainly do.
Well,
As a professional manager for well over
And the reason
36,
why-
37 years, I want to help. I have public service in my DNA.
yeah. Well, I asked that because you could be walking into I don't want to say a hostile work environment, but not a very pleasant one, because this was not very well received.
May I
Ma'am?
respond to that?
Sure.
All right. Something I didn't mention to y'all when I introduced myself is for 30 years I officiated college basketball. About 5 times a week, I'd walk into a gymnasium and with 2 other people and need to be impartial, fair, friendly, and firm. It was up to the fans, it was up to the coaches, it was up to the players how they wanted to act. And, you know, through that all, and it's coincidental that there's going to be a few games on TV this weekend, that, you know, we need to work together as a community. What has happened in the past, when I was younger as a dad carpenter, I had worked for a small shop owner, and he said, Vernon, you know, it's okay every once in a while to stop and take a look behind you, but don't look too long because the future is ahead of you. I have a few of those saying that I've carried with me a long time. The other saying came from my grandfather. He said, before you point your finger at somebody else, remember how many fingers are pointing at you. I'm not here to carry any contentious behavior forward. I'm here to help the community move forward, the citizens that elected this body to make decisions, to the staff that wants to serve this community, and do it to the best of their ability.
But it still needs to be understood that when, and I know that change happens because I've been a manager and I've come in and I've changed. And people don't like change, and we all know that. People are creatures of habit, but also people are, I'm going to say hurting as well. And so there's a respect level. So that's the reason why I ask you that question, because I want to make sure that you understand, because we're still a small town, and that people are hurting and that people did not like the way that things were handled and how they were handled and all this other stuff. So it's important for whoever walks in, whether you're part-time, full-time, or whatever else, understands that there's a lot of people out there that are pissed off for what happened. And so it's important that whoever walks in understands that just out of respect. It's good if you can be that person that is, you know, not going to hold a grudge and all that other stuff, but you're also going to have to walk people through this. What I'm saying is that it's not just that was yesterday, tomorrow we're moving forward. What I'm only saying is that whoever walks in needs to understand that there is baggage there because this was done very unethically. Whether you agree or disagree, that's not what I'm asking. That's a statement of mine, rhetorical, whatever. You need to know, because if you would walk in, that's a situation you're walking into. I've walked into situations, and I was very grateful when somebody's told me that I'm walking in and I'm going to get blindsided by every single person. And that way I can deal with it better. So that's why I'm saying, has somebody let you know that you may be walking into a situation where people are hurting and people did not like the way it was handled? Just so you can know, it's for your own, is why I'm saying this. Like, you have to know that. And if nobody's told you, then I'm telling you.
Ma'am,
Because-
out of respect for the
Sorry.
rest of the audience, we have 2 minutes left. I just want to make sure that there's
That's
any
okay.
other questions.
He's looking at me like, I'm not sure if you're going to say something. Do you want to say something else?
I'm so excited to get started and help this community move forward. And whatever you say, if it comes to fruition, we'll figure that out. But
The only thing I said was,
I'd rather look
the only
forward
thing
than behind.
The only thing I'm saying is, did somebody just forewarn you of that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Sheila Cook, live in Fairview. My only questions is like, we don't have the money, you probably know that, so we're gonna have to borrow money. And I'm hoping you have experience, I'm sure you do, with borrowing money until we get the FEMA money back, and what we have to pay for it, and all the interest, and looking at our budget with everything we gotta borrow. I'll be talking about some of that later. So you have that experience, right?
Borrowing money.
I mean, we're gonna have
with
to.
Ben and the team and
Yeah.
people that audit our books, we will figure that out.
Yeah, but you've had experience with all that kind of, and getting the FEMA, that's all.
Again, that was
Appreciate it.
not my forte in serving with the city of Franklin. We had a chief financial officer. Met Ben yesterday. His heart's in the right place. The good news is that your budget, well prepared, as far as I can see. Yes, the resources are limited, and we need to bridge any gap that we find as we go forward.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's
No,
the answer.
no, that's fine.
Mr. Girth, I believe Commissioner Hall has one final question for you.
By the way, Ms. Cook, I have experience with the Cumberland Securities, and I'll be glad to help with that. I know the gentleman real well. He was the one we worked with when we handled several things years ago. My question, we have several ongoing projects, and y'all may have already touched on that. How would you go about prioritizing each project accordingly? I can name off 4 or 5 real quick. The firing range, the lighting at the interstate, which I think is important. We've got one on the agenda tonight, is codes changing. And then there's always our park. That is an ongoing issue with this disaster. My thoughts on that, I'll explain those later. But how would you go about prioritizing that? Would you talk to the department heads, or would you get the board's influence on that? How would you go about that?
Commissioner Buffalini asked a similar
Same,
question
okay.
maybe
Sorry
before
about
he came, but briefly, and I'll answer it the same way. When working on capital projects and staff presents to you what that budget would be, and the number of capital projects, is that it's your charge to prioritize them. We can make a recommendation based on the various projects, but you'll know what the resources are, and you'll hopefully give us a decision so we can move forward with it. Because one thing is certain that I've learned in my career, whether it's a blue-collar community in Wisconsin or Illinois or even here, the cost of development, the cost of capital project only goes up. So the longer that one waits, a community waits, the more costly it's going to be. So really that decision lies with the commission. And when you're looking at capital projects, and I had mentioned this, I'm not sure, Commissioner, if you had heard it or not, Franklin has over 100 capital projects that are on a list. They can only handle a dozen or so. And, that's a community that is fiscally sound.
Yeah.
So how you're dealing with it on a lesser level is similar in many respects. But ultimately, you've got to make a decision. Staff made a recommendation. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen there agreed with many of them, but made some decisions based on the resources available and might come forward.
Two of those got grants involved, the other two doesn't have. So there's more out there, but these are the two that's on my mind right now. Anyway, I appreciate your response. Thank you, sir.
Mary Anderson had a prior engagement, so she's a little late to arrive, so I'm going to pass the gavel back over to her and also allow any questions that she may have for you before we wrap up.
All I have to say is thank you for everyone being here, and I just want to let you know that Mr. Girth and I had a nice long conversation, and he very much aligns with the way I feel about the way Fairview should move forward. So I have a lot of confidence in you. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to take a 10-minute recess, and we will start again at 7:15, and we'll open our regular scheduled meeting.